Well, I can certainly, having been and spoken at the last couple, Syima, absolutely attest to the vibrancy and the energy and the diversity of the festival, which is quite unlike anything I've been to, and a huge testimony, I think, to what you've been able to achieve over those 8 years. Can you say a bit more about? I think this is one of the distinctive features for me. It is your focus on younger people and your education program. Can you say a bit more about that? And who are the kids coming, and what are they getting from coming on to your festival?
So the education program is actually is one of the festival programs that runs. So we don't have we do work with schools year round, but the education program runs during the festival itself. And the reason for that is that it means that children get to hear from speakers from around the world, and the program is an integral part of the festival. So it speaks to the same kinds of themes that the main festival is speaking to. In terms of the children who come, so we engage with schools from across West Yorkshire, of course Bradford. So far we've engaged with about 80% of the primary and secondary schools in Bradford, but we also get schools from Kirklees, Leeds, Alderale, South Yorkshire, and London as well, and and a lot of home educators. As I said, I mean, the idea for the education program came from the fact that we run a stream of events during the festival, which are free again, and they run at the weekends to enable parents to sort of naturally fall into the festival is the idea. But what I was really struck by was that, again, unless you're really switched on to these things as a parent, you're probably not going to know about the fact that there's a literature festival taking place. And for most people who we wanted to get to come to these things, a literature festival would not be a natural thing to go to. It wouldn't be something that they would see as being for them. So the education program came from that. It was again an intervention, if you like. It was how do we get the children, young people who wouldn't normally engage with these things? How do we make them aware of the festival? And actually, how do we inspire them? And I think the key thing for that is, in terms of that program, is raising aspirations, raising literacy levels. And the aspirations part comes very much from the main program. So, having people like yourself at the festival, and actually that being open to young people to come along to. But, for example, this year, it was the 60-year anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech, and the person that we had speaking to young people was Keith Ellison, who is the Attorney General of Minnesota, the Chief Prosecutor for the George Floyd case. And I think these things make a massive difference.
They absolutely do make a massive difference. And maybe just on that theme of making a massive difference, Syima, can you say a few words about what contribution the festival, and indeed what contribution culture generally plays in the regeneration of a city like Bradford, which as someone who grew up just sort of 10 miles north of Bradford, I've seen struggle through much of my life. So tell me a bit about how the culture and the festival can help in that big regeneration effort, which is absolutely underway in Bradford now.
Absolutely. I think the festival has been a key part of Bradford moving forward, probably in ways that I certainly didn't envisage when I first set it up, because I think at that point you have an idea of what you want to achieve. So over the last 9 years, I have seen the tremendous shifts in the sector itself, and I think because BLF has been and is very ambitious, that actually helped promote ambition in the culture sector in Bradford, where traditionally there had been a little bit of oh, that's not for us, or we wouldn't be able to achieve X, Y, or Z. So I think the festival has been really instrumental from that point of view. I think, obviously with any cultural event, there are the economic impacts around, the footfall, like I said, we've had visitors from over 30 countries. That means hotel nights and people, spending in restaurants and, and a change in terms of the image of the city. I think what's been really lovely for us was that when Bradford received the UK City of Culture accolade, BLF was independently cited by a number of different newspapers, but also awarding bodies as being one of the key reasons for Bradford to receive the award. And I think BLF has been instrumental in showing what can be achieved in cities like Bradford. And I think the wider economic impact, I think there's two sides. Like I said, there is the hard economic impact in terms of what the football creates. And then I think with the kind of work that we do, where actually, the entire CYP program is free. So the education program that we provide for schools is free. The events for children and people in the festival are free. 60% of our, tickets during the festival in terms of the ticketed program went for free. I think that's actually about future economic impact, which is possibly not something that we can measure in that kind of hard way. But I think the feedback that we get from a qualitative point of view about the teachers who tell us, well, this young person would never have considered university, but now they're really interested. Children have come and quotes that you feel like you can't use because it's like, this has been the best day of my life, all of these various things. But I think that actually plants a seed that actually then grows. And without that kind of aspiration, without that kind of hope, we can't create that future economic impact. And then I think and I think given, where we are in the world today and the things that are happening, I think the impact of bringing people together, of bringing communities together who would normally never talk to each other or sit next to each other, and the fact that that happens naturally is really important. And then, we now talk about I think particularly post-COVID, the impact of loneliness and the health and well-being impacts of events like this. But I think the fact that this festival engages with people across all communities, it engages with people who wouldn't normally come into these spaces. It removes that threshold fear, as we call it, of stepping into certain spaces. Yeah, I think all of these things are sort of the future economic impact that we will see in coming years. And I would certainly count for BLF the City of Culture as part of that.
I think the point you raised there, Syima, about us having a sort of wide-angle lens, I suppose, on what we mean by regeneration. Because, of course, the BLF and in time, City of Culture will generate jobs and will generate income and will attract business and people. But the wider role in social connections of various types and in people with different backgrounds and beliefs, finding common cause through culture strikes me as, particularly at this moment, particularly important, not just in Bradford, but right across the world, actually.
Absolutely. And I think that is the interesting thing about Bradford, because of the communities that it has. The historical migration. So the festival has run a Jewish heritage strand for a really long time. I think one of the things about the festival that has been really important, and I certainly over this last week, I've been reflecting about the things that we have programmed, the conversations that we've had, how some of those things have changed over the last 9 years. I think the really important thing is the fact that the conversations that BLF is able to have, because it is Bradford Literature Festival, because of the communities that are based here, because of the history that the city has, possibly can't happen anywhere else. And those are conversations that are actually really important from a worldwide point of view. And I found it interesting when I think one of the things that I actually find really interesting about BLF is the fact that there aren't more festivals like this. I think that's something I found quite interesting. Once you get beyond the sort of wide-eyed star, stars in your eyes, because you think, oh, it'd be great to set up this festival. It can do X, Y, and Z. But I think when I first came up with the idea, all of the things that we are now talking about in terms of bringing communities together and, having conversations, inspiring young people, it was all really important. But I remember that the first day I started working on BLF full time was March 2014. And literally that was that day, the first UKIP councillor was elected in Keighley. And I find it interesting that the conversations that we have become increasingly more urgent rather than less, which is what I would have thought when we were setting the festival up, as time has progressed. And like I said, I don't see some of these conversations happening in other spaces. And it is really, really important that we have these conversations on a platform that is public and accessible to everyone.